Hi, this is Mrs. Ward, and today I'm going to be going over the Algebra and Functions additional practice for the ACT. So we're going to start with number 1. Which of the following is equivalent to 4x squared raised to the third power? So when I have this 3 outside of the parentheses, I need to remember that that 3 goes to both things that are inside the parentheses. So I'm going to think of 4 to the third times x squared also to the third power. 4 to the third is 64, and when I raise one power to another power, I multiply the exponents, so I'm going to take 2 times 3 and get x to the 6th. So the correct answer for this one is choice G, 64x to the 6th. Number 2, for which of the following is the equivalent simplified expression for 2 times the quantity of 4x plus 7 minus 3 times the quantity of 2x minus 4? I'm going to distribute the 2, which is pretty straightforward. I'm going to have 8x plus 14. When I go to distribute this 3, I need to remember that I'm actually distributing a negative 3. So this will be minus 6x, and then the negative 3 times the negative 4 will make it a plus 12. My answer, when I combine my like terms, I'm going to have 2x plus 26. And my correct choice for this one is the letter H. But number 3, it wants me to take the quantity of 3x plus 7 and square it. So you don't make a mistake and forget your middle term, which is probably the most common mistake. I'm going to take the time to rewrite it as 3x plus 7 times 3x plus 7, and then I'm going to FOIL. Multiplying my first terms, I'll have 3x times 3x, which will be 9x squared. Then 3x times 7, which will be plus 21x. 7 times 3x, which will be 21x. And then 7 times 7, which is 49. So I'll have 9x squared plus 42x plus 49. So the correct choice here is the letter E. Number 4, as a salesperson, your commission is directly proportional to the dollar amount of sales you make. If your sales are $800, your commission is $112. How much commission would you earn if you had $1,400 in sales? So I set this up as a proportion, and I made my sales my numerator and my commission my denominator. So for the first set, it tells me that if I have sales of $800, I make a commission of $112. And I want to know how much commission I'm going to make, so I'm going to put X in the denominator on my commission level if I sell 1,400. To solve this, I'm going to cross multiply, and I'm going to have 800X is equal to 156,800. Divide both sides by 800. And I'm going to get X to equal 196. So I'm going to make $196 in commission, and that is choice B. Number 5, it wants the product of the two quantities. So I'm going to multiply my coefficients. So I'm going to take 2 times 3 and get 6. When I multiply the x to the 4th times the x to the 5th, my base is going to be x. When I multiply exponents, I add the exponents. So I'm going to have 4 plus 5, which is 9. Then y times y to the 8th. Remember, this is understood to be 1, so I'm going to end up with y to the 9th. So my final answer is 6x to the 9th, y to the 9th, which is choice H. Number 6, it wants the expression. I'm going to FOIL, so I'm going to multiply 4z times z and get 4z squared. Multiplying the outer two, I'm going to have minus 8z. Multiplying the inner two, I'm going to have plus 3z. And finally, multiplying the last two terms, I'm going to have negative 6. When I combine my like terms, I'm going to have 4z squared minus 5z minus 6. So my correct choice is the letter J. Number 7, for all positive integers x, what is the greatest common factor of the two numbers? So when you're looking for the greatest common factor, you're looking for the largest number that will go into both 216x and 180x. So I could take the time to list all my factors, but I think that's kind of cumbersome and I don't want to really do that. So I see that they both have x, so I know that x is going to be part of my greatest common factor, which automatically eliminates choices F and G. I see that 216 and 180 are both even, so I know that 2 will go into both of those, so that eliminates H. Since it's looking for the greatest common factor, I divided both 216, I divided by that by 36, and when I did that, I'm doing that right now, I got 6, so that works, and then I took 180 and divided that by 36, and I believe I get 5. So since 36 goes into largest, I am going to choose 36x. The reason why I chose 36 first is because it's looking for the greatest common factor. So if 36 didn't go into either one of those, then I know 12 would have had to be the answer. So it's better to check the greatest one first. Number 8, for the function h of x is equal to 4x squared minus 5x, what is the value of h of negative 3? So in place of the x, all I'm going to do is stick in the negative 3. So I am just going to do that now. And I'm going to have 4 times negative 3 squared minus 5 times negative 3. If I'm putting this in my calculator, I have to make sure that I put these parentheses around the negative 3 so I get a positive 9. When I do all this, this will be 36 plus 15, and my correct answer is going to be 51, which is the letter D. Number 9, what are the values of x that are solutions to x squared plus 2x is equal to 8? Since it's raised to the second power and it's a quadratic equation, to solve it, I'm going to set equal to 0. So I'm going to have x squared plus 2x, subtracting 8 from both sides. So I have minus 8 is equal to 0. I'm probably going to do product sum. My product is negative 8. My sum is a positive 2. The factors of 8 that add up to positive 2 are going to be negative 4 and positive 2. So I'm going to rewrite this 2x as negative 4x plus 2x. Here's the x squared minus 8 is equal to 0. From the first two terms, I'm going to factor out an x. So I'm going to have x times the quantity of x minus 4. From the last two terms, I'm going to factor out a 2. So I'm going to have 2 times the quantity of x minus 4 equal to 0. Factoring out the x minus 4, I'm going to have x minus 4 times x plus 2 is equal to 0. Set them both equal to 0, and I'm going to have x is equal to 4, and x is equal to negative 2. So I want 4 and negative 2, which is going to be choice C. Number 10, a formula used to compute the current value of a savings account is A is equal to P times the quantity of 1 plus R to the N, where A is the current value, P is the amount deposited, R is the rate of interest for one compounding period expressed as a decimal, and N is the number of compounding periods. Which of the following is the closest to the value of the savings account after 5 years if $10,000 is deposited at 4% interest? So this 5 is going to be my N. The 10,000 is going to be the amount that I initially deposit, which is going to be my P. And 4% is going to be my rate, but I'm going to have to remember to change it to decimal and move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So my calculator, I'm going to put 10,000 times 1 plus 0.04 raised to the 5th power. Just put all this in my calculator in one step, and I end up with $12,166.66. But it asked me to round to the nearest dollar, so I'm going to go with this choice. Number 11. Given that f of x is equal to 4x plus 1 and g of x is equal to x squared minus 2, which of the following is an expression for f of g of x? So seeing which one is inside, the g of x is the one that's, g of x is what's inside. So this is my g of x. So in place of x in f, I'm going to put what g of x is equal to, which is that x squared minus 2. So I'm going to have f of x squared minus 2 is going to equal 4 times x squared minus 2 plus 1. Distributing them by 4, I'm going to have 4x squared minus 8 plus 1. So I end up with 4x squared minus 7, which is choice H. Number 12. For all x in the domain of the function x plus 1, this function is equivalent to, and I'm looking at my choices, and I realize that I'm going to have to somehow simplify the fraction that they gave me. So I have x plus 1. In the denominator, it has the greatest common factor of x, so I'm going to factor that out. When I factor that out, I'm left with x squared minus 1. I recognize that x squared minus 1 is the difference of two perfect squares, so I'm going to factor that as x plus 1, x minus 1, remembering to bring that x along. I'm going to simplify the x plus 1's, and I'm left with 1 over x times x minus 1. When I look over to the left, I don't see that as any of my choices, so I redistribute this x. I have 1 over x squared minus x. Oops, that should be a minus. I'm getting a little sloppy here. Yeah, we'll fix that. So I'm going to have x minus 1 as my denominator. X squared minus x, sorry. And that is choice J. Number 13. Tom has taken 5 of the 8 equally weighted tests in his U.S. history class this semester, and he has an average score of exactly 80 points. How many points does he need to earn on the 6th test to bring his average score up to exactly 80 points? This is a great example of a question where they give you some information that you just don't need, and it's there to throw you off. He's taken 5 tests, and I want his average after 6 tests to go up to 80 points. That 8 is not needed. It's just there to confuse you. What has happened so far is Tom has taken 5 tests, and he's gotten some score in these 5 tests. And when I add up those 5 scores and divide it by 5, I end up with an average of 78 points. So that means the sum of these 5 tests, now let's just write sum of 5 tests, is equal to, and to solve that, I would multiply both sides by 5. And when I do that, I get 390 points. So far in this class, he's earned 390 points. So now Tom is going to go take another test. He's starting off with 390 points. He's taking another test. So now he's going to have, this is going to go up by 1 because now he's taking an extra test. So now he's going to have 6 tests. And now he wants to raise his average to 80%. And I need to know what he needs to score on this test in order for that to happen. I'm going to multiply both sides by 6 to get that 6 out of my denominator. These 6's will simplify. I'm left with 390 plus x is equal to 480. Subtract 390 from both sides. And I see that Tom needs a score of 90 in order to raise his average to an 80%. And 90 happens to be choice A. 14. A flight instructor charges $50 per lesson plus an additional fee for the use of his plane. The charge for the use of his plane varies directly with the square root of the time the plane is used. So I'm going to write that down first, what I have so far. So when I get charged, I'm paying $50 plus the charge for the use of the plane varies directly. So there's going to be that K with the square root of the time the plane is used. So we'll use T for the time the plane is used. And it says, if a lesson plus 16 minutes of the plane's usage costs $90, what is the total amount of charge for a lesson having 36 minutes? So I need to find out what this K is. So since the first lesson is $90, I'm going to set this equal to $90. The first time I'm doing the $90 is when I have the plane for 16 minutes. So I'm going to say 90 is equal to 50 plus K times the square root of 16. Subtract 50 from, well, I'll do that. Subtract 50 from both sides, and I'm going to get 40 is equal to, and the square root of 16 is 4, so this will be equal to 4K. Divide both sides by 4, and 10 is equal to K. So now write an equation for any time that the plane is used. I am going to say that the charge, whatever that is going to be equal to 50 plus 10 times the square root of the time that I use the plane. So now I want to know what the total amount charged for a lesson having 36 minutes of plane use. So I'm going to look for this charge. I'll call it C. 50 plus 10 times the square root, and now I'm using the plane for 36 minutes. So the charge is going to equal 50 plus 10 times the square root of 36 is 6. So now I'm going to have C is equal to, order of operations says I have to do this first, so 50 plus 60, and my charge is $110. And that will be choice D. Number 15, when graphed in the standard XY coordinate plane, the line of x is equal to -3 and y is equal to x minus 3 intersect at what point? You could graph this, or you could just use substitution. I think in this case, substitution is actually going to be easier. I'm going to take and place x. They tell me x is equal to -3, so I'm going to stick that -3 into the other equation and solve for y. So I'm going to have y is equal to -3 minus 3. So I'm going to have y is equal to -6. So the place where these 2 points intersect, my x was -3, my y is -6. So I want -3, -6, which happens to be choice E. And finally, the last question on this review. In a standard XY coordinate plane, the midpoint of AB is 4, -3. A is located at 1, -5. If x and y are the coordinates of B, what is the value of x plus y? So I tend to use the midpoint formula for this. So if to find the midpoint, you would take the first x coordinate, add it to the second x coordinate, divide it by 2, and that would give you the x coordinate of the midpoint. So I know that one point is going to be 1. I'm looking for the other points, and the x coordinate of the midpoint is 4. I multiply both sides by 2, and I have 1 plus x is equal to 8. Subtract 1 from both sides, and I have x is equal to, uh-oh, what happened? Hold on. Sorry about that. So I have x is equal to 7. Again, it's looking for the sum of x plus y. So I am going to have to go back up and do the same thing to find y. So I'm going to take the y coordinate, which is -5. So I'm going to take -5 plus the other y coordinate, divide that by 2, and that's equal to the y coordinate in the midpoint, which is -3. Multiply both sides by 2. Here, these two simplify, and I'm left with -5 plus y is equal to -6. Add 5 to both sides, and I get y is equal to -1. So my x was 7. My y is -1. When I add those two, I get a sum of 6, which is choice C. Okay, I hope this helps you out. And again, this was the algebra functions additional practice, and good luck on the ACT.